Hey, good morning. I submitted a video yesterday, and within 30 minutes, they took it down. But what I said was supported by affidavits, by evidence. And what I did was I took off the first maybe 30 minutes, and I'm just focusing on what Justice Anna told me. And it makes sense what she's telling me. It makes sense because half of us, 90% of us, we're not getting justice, and we're trying to wonder why. They're causing illegal abuse syndrome. When I say they, I'm saying those that are in building 810. I have proof, I have hard evidence that they set us up, and they're not allowing me to share the hard proof. Now, I have videos that are like 10, 20 minutes long that shows the evidence, but the video I made yesterday probably was so hard that they couldn't handle it. And I want you to hear Justice Anna and how she explains why there is injustice. And she wrote me a letter. And for those who question this justice's integrity, this wet letter is stamped. So as far as I can tell, this is an affidavit. And if you research her work and try to cut out the BS that the media has given her, you will find that she has done more for us than those people in D.C. who call themselves justice and have the motto, justice for all. And I'll read it, especially for those that have a hard time reading because of your injuries and etc. But here we go. So I hope you guys listen to what she has to say, because this answers the question why there's so much injustice in our justice system and in our government, especially at the VA. I want you to know that Justice Anna is not the only one that reminded us about the injustice. So did Linwood. And Linwood is one of the best, if not the best, lawyers in the United States. He's honest, he's a Christian, and he speaks the truth. In our case, we got a letter from Justice Anna, and she says this: Dear Sue Bozgoz, I read with dismay the details of incarceration and mistreatment of one of our own. I regret to say that Jimmy is not alone. We know of over 100 other disabled people in Nihon that they did this to. And when I say we, I'm saying James and James' wife. You don't experiment Nazi style on anybody's child. If you don't want them experimenting on your child, then you got to step up and say something, just like James, right? All right, back to the letter. I am returning a wet ink copy of the public international notice to vacate. It should be sufficient to explain the situation and the duty of the municipal and territorial officers alike. Jimmy is the victim of double-ended impersonation scheme and is owed awe, succor, and assistance. And succor means DOD when he's in distress and he's on his deathbed, because if his chest touches his heart, he'll die. So, we all know this. We need help, and we need assistance. We need the medical folks to go in there and do an emergency examination. We ask DOD to do this. Do not let him die, guys. Don't let him die. Justice Anna also said, Hey Sue, P.S. No commercial court that's corrupt can hear the issues you are presenting. Readdress the district court for the District of Columbia. And we did, when we answered the DOJ, the corrupt DOJ, Paul Serino, When we answered him, we said, we don't accept your nonsense. We do not consent. We're going outside the box. We're going to use these 2 executive orders that help us get relief. Why do we want relief? We want relief so we can help Jimmy and help others. Okay, let me stop right here because this is important, guys. It's a fact that 810, Building 810, VA headquarters in Washington, D.C., which is the largest executive branch, is stealing our tax dollars and hammering the whistleblower. They're retaliating using our court system and the jails. That's why we have the most jails in the whole world, because it's all a scam to imprison black, browns, whistleblowers, and not the 1%. And our case is just one of many. You just haven't had your turn yet, people. It's also a fact that they're supposed to help the veteran. If I'm telling you that they're doing the opposite, they're harming veterans, well, 22 of us are dying a day. 22 veterans are dying a day. Now, let's go to Japan and use our case. Jimmy is alive. He is the youngest gentleman that has survived the most torturous human experimentation test there is. They're using him as a guinea pig, and they're publishing their work Nazi style. So if he is alive, and they've done this not only to Jimmy, but 100 other children, help me understand why our case is not a priority. And let's go back to my Auntie Nana, because she was my first ADA client. They, Zurich, a multi-trillion-dollar, billion-dollar company, whatever you want to call it, they hire an incompetent driver who forgets to buckle her in. He speeds. She flies out her wheelchair. She breaks her neck. He refuses to take her to the fire department and the hospital. She eventually dies because of what he did. And the sorry part about it, the court system in Seattle and in Pierce County covers up her death. So if they're covering it up and we don't nip it in the bud, how many people are dying? How many people will die if we don't talk about it? And then I got YouTube cutting me out because I'm telling the truth, suspending me. They're just as bad as the people that did it. They violated 242, 241, 1985, and 1986. You remember those. Because once we all wake up, they're going to all get sued, and they're all going to be put out of business. It is so ridiculous, guys. I honestly, somebody that fought for rights and would have died for rights, it's just unbelievable. You come back home and you have no rights. So how do you justify sending more soldiers overseas? You can't. Okay, so moving right along, I want to give you the information read the information Justice Anna sent to me. Public international notice to vacate. So they're telling people with these corrupt corporations that went bankrupt to vacate, right? Okay, so number 1, the commercial organization that have been hired by the British governments and the Holy Sees to provide governmental service stipulated under the three federal constitutions have been terminated in bankruptcy. And we've proven that, right? Our contracts are not with these subcontractors, but their bankruptcy and bad performance does impact us. And we do have cause to manage our own affairs and to make decisions with respect to the new service providers. Number 2, our actual contracts are with the principals, the Pope, the Queen, and the Lord Mayor of London. We have not approved and do not have contracts with any of the new municipal corporations and or territorial corporations which are seeking to create contracts by assumption of contract in succession. No, Building 810, you're not going to rule over us. Okay, I'm going to stop right here and give you guys a quick operation course. you got to really pay attention to the executive orders, because if there is an emergency, you have to know what executive orders are out there and focus on the succession exercises or executive orders. For example, she's saying that look for the succession, because what they're doing, the ones that were in bankrupt, Biden administration, it doesn't count because they were in bankruptcy. So when they went in bankruptcy, she went up and stood up another United States, the real United States that's fair. And then you got to go and look at what President Trump did, and what he did as it pertains to succession in December. He stood up other organizations. However, she's telling President Trump what needs to happen, because what they're doing is they just bankrupt the United States. And in his succession, this is the order on who he said would be in charge. And it's not Miley, it's these people, Austin and a female. That's right. But don't trust me. Do your own research. It's there. The answer's there. You just got to dig for it. Now, moving right along. Number 3, we have specifically provided notice to the other principals and have denied any assumptions of succession by the Biden administration for cause. Mr. Biden is a self-admitted influence peddler and crook. There is, therefore, no controversy. He admits it. He admitted it. All right. We accept that admission. The number of our municipal employees and dependents who may or may not have voted for Mr. Biden is a moot issue. This decision not to hire the Biden administration and not to allow it to represent us and forbidding access to our credit is a business decision made by lawful deputies, and it may not be presumed against. Biden can't even go into the Pentagon. How many people know that? We are the employers and the presumed donors of the public trust. As donors, we have returned and demanded the liquidation of the public trust and the return of the assets unharmed and unencumbered. This includes all state trust and secured trust assets, all gold and silver assets purloined and deposited offshore, domestic and overseas investment, and all credit owed to American states and people. We have provided the means to accomplish this removal of the artificial trust structures, because they're artificial, that have been imposed under false legal presumption and have allowed for a safe and gradual transition to state assembly control. Number 5, all the territories that entered territorial statehood between 1860 and 1959 have been enrolled as state of the Union and have entered into their true capacity as states, according the equal footing doctrine of as of 1 October 2020. 6, all territory states of state organizations are provided notice to vacate and must begin withdrawal and transition planning. Municipal states and states organizations which should not exist under the provision of the federal constitution have already had 10 years to reorganize and liquidate their businesses interests and are together with their federal agencies not being allowed to continue unless an unconstitutional incursion. Number 7, it is unfortunate that this very significant downsizing and removal of municipal interest is necessary, but it is clearly contraindicated by our founding agreement, our will, and the public intent, not to mention being contrary to common sense and our practical benefit. The mistaken presumption that the municipal government represents our civilian government in our purported absence has resulted in our states and people being charged for a complete redundancy of federal and federal state-to-state services by two self-interest commercial corporations, both in the business of providing government services. As a result, we have been paying for 2 departments of labor, 2 Department of Defense, 2 court system, 2 political administration, and we have been putting up with not only the cost, but the confusion and infighting that results from this duplication of effort. The actual state assemblies are now in session, and prior assumption of authority seized upon by the territorial and municipal government contractors and their respective state organization must be released in an orderly, gradual, and peaceful manner, without fear or rancor. Provision for the necessary transfer of authority and measures to retask and re-employ people affected by this necessary restructuring are underway and should prove beneficial for all concerned. Number 9, all members of the general public and international investors, as well as all members of state legislatures, have cause to know that as of 1st of October 2020, all state trust interests and all assets contained therein have reverted to the living people of these several states of the Union, and these assets are not available for any continued speculation, use as collateral, sale, encumbrance, or abuse by the members of the United States Department of Justice serving as the U.S. trustees, nor be members of the United States Congress serving as United States trustees, together with their heirs and assigned, nor are any state trust assets subject to any sale, distribution, secondary administrative contract, or other agreements entered into by state of legislatures. Number 10, the enrollment of the Western states has been made effective with and retroactively contemporaneous with their original entry into territorial statehood. All rights, titles, and interests must be yielded to those Americans who have returned and who are daily returning to their lawful standing on the land and the soil of this country. Number 11, as a matter of law and of proper public administration, all rights, titles, duties, and interests in the international and global realm, which were once exercised by the Confederation of the States of America and the Federal Republic, have returned by operation of law to our unincorporated federation doing business as the United States of America, which was and is the delegator of a mutually held delegated power of the actual states. Number 12, also as a matter of law and proper public administration, all rights, titles, duties, and interests in the national and local government realms vest in the state and country assemblies, which are now in session for the first time in many years, and all foreign trust and foreign trust interests otherwise presumed to exist are dissolved. Number 13, the return of the actual American government to full force and function cannot be accomplished overnight, but the foundational work to rebuild and reconstruct both the Confederation and the States of America and the Federal Republic is underway and ongoing. As the only true sovereign interest in this country, representing all people of all ethnicities, races, religions, and backgrounds, our state assemblies hold aloft the banner of national sovereignty and self-determination, and through their unincorporated federation of states, they similarly uphold the ideas of individuals' freedom and self-determination, and yet also fully accept voluntarily cooperation with other nations for the advancement of mutual peace, security, friendly trade, social and cultural exchange, and environmental issues. Number 14, in the transition period, there will be a migration of elements of the American armed forces to occupy the position of the original Federal Republic, which is ultimately and instrumentally of our unincorporated federation. In this way, the function of the original American federal subcontractors can be restored without having to complete the entire reconstruction first. Mr. Trump is selecting those elements of the American armed forces necessary for the task before us, and they are being funded on a temporary basis until the actual final reconstruction is in place and the entire American government is functioning as intended. Number 15, Mr. Trump will be called upon to help us secure all those American assets that have been held offshore in diverse locations. And we are all obligated by the international law to return control of those recovered assets back to the actual unincorporated Union of States doing business as the United States, which is our domestic national government of the several state assemblies for reassignment of a portion of those assets to our unincorporated federation, the United States of America, which is our international and global government, which then assigns resources to the Confederation and the Federal Republic, which Mr. Trump and the elements of the American Armed Forces, particularly the United States Army, stomp stomp, and the United States Air Force, and the United States Space Force will be occupying. So, you know what that tells me, guys? It tells me that Miley is giving Austin advice. He's not in control, but he is. And Trump called a state of emergency. How do we know we were or are in a state of emergency? Because of these executive orders. Voter fraud, or if there's human trafficking, or if Jimmy or someone like Jimmy has been illegally experimented on, even though General Austin, is in command, the army is in control. And that's why I remind General Miley that, hey, look, I see you, and I see that 6th of January experiment incident that we had when you had civilians go and attack and violate security. The Capitol Hill, guys, think about it. The Capitol, the most secure place on this God's green earth, they're going to go in there and break everything down. I don't think so. Come on. Think. All right, so number 16, these assignments and the correct lawful and legal arrangements have already been made and stand up the public international record of the Union Commercial Code, but it remains under the watchful eye of the international community to be sure that no further substitution of impersonations of other legal chicanery is attempted by the British or other European interests seeking to derail or delay our process or impersonate our lawful unincorporated government again. So that says, Miley, what you need to do, sir, is go and bust those people in building 810. They're violating constitutional rights in plain open. Von Sell is a witness, and we need to get them gone. And once again, what this tells me is we were used to capture more criminals, and I don't mind as long as nobody dies, right? Especially not Jimmy. And I know for a fact that ever since we got involved, there's something going on in the background. So we gave you a lot of criminals, so go ahead and do your duty. However, the games really got to stop. It really does cause legal abuse syndrome. And it's getting old. We need to get them gone. Number 17, upon the receipt of control of our return trust assets, we shall be authorized the minting of the United States silver dollar for domestic use and the American gold coinage for use internationally. This does not imply that credit-based notes will be removed from circulation, but necessarily changes will be made across a spectrum of currency product that are either based on other commodities or are commercial or military scripts. We do not anticipate that anyone needs to be harmed in this process at all. That's why you got to stop trying to run me off the road. Tara Jones said to expect to die. Do not run me off the road. Don't run my children off the road, and don't cut their steering wheel pump anymore. And then when they settle with us, you have what? Amy Berman Jackson going behind, sneaking around, writing void orders, dismissing them when she knows she can't. It's ridiculous, guys. But to continue, here's something else before I go forward. This is Amy Berman Jackson kicking me out of my own case and telling me I cannot be or act as Robert's ADA advocate. He has to go out and find a corrupt attorney that she's in control of. Guys, this is the biggest trick in the book. You don't have to be an attorney. And not only that, they make you spend $200,000. They make you... Justice doesn't have to take this long and doesn't have to hurt. And we have just gone, or let them gone, wild. And it's a scam. This is the biggest scam. And all Justice Anna's letter is explaining to us, that's all she's doing, explaining to us how we got in this mess and how there's people working behind the scenes, and it's going to take a while because they did this to us for 158 years. And what happened in 158 years is going to take a while to fix, repair. To continue. Number 18, we have thus far published the enrollment of the states created during and after the so-called American Civil War and the first American public law in over 100 years, which established punishment and prohibits for corporations seeking to meddle with. And that's as far as I'm going to talk about that, because last time the social media YouTube threw me out, or my first video out on this. So let's continue on reading. Of individual people using nanotech and patents genetic material to create the basis to claim these same people are genetically modified organism, GMOs, subject to ownership by the patent holder. We have also published and reissued several years ago our renewed sovereign letter patent and our recognition of the Declaration of Independence of 4 July 1776 as the source and foundation of our lawful American government. Number 19. The renewed sovereign letter patent referenced above are our acknowledgement and receipt of those land and title interests which are our by vulnerable grant and treaty agreement made before, during, and after the War of Independence. And these renewed sovereign letters patents represent our peaceful and mutual sharing of land and soil interests among the living people present within the borders of each one of the several states, including the members of the Native Americans nations. We are, as individuals, welcome to participate in the state assemblies and who are inheritors of all the same constitutional guarantees and protections. Number 20. We formalized and recorded and gave international notice to these actions to make it clear that we are the lawful possessors and inheritors, and we are in full command of our records, our history, and our depository receipts, grants, treaties, land, patents, and our presumed title and deeds issued in our purported absence. We are not confused or incompetent or engaged in any war or controversy, and wish only for a peaceful and lawful and logical way forward for our country and for the rest of the world. Number 21, our government is not now, nor has it ever been, engaged in oppressing anyone, hurting anyone, dictating any religious belief, harming or depriving anyone based on their race or ethnicity, promoting any system of bondage, or depriving anyone of the full enjoyment of their assets, both public and private. All right, I gotta make a comment on that. We may think that we don't do it, but our State Department in Japan allowed Japanese military to violate Jimmy and steal James's patents, while our State Department ambassadors watched and they played this game called pay to play. Give me my assets back, Amy Berman Jackson and courts. You stole it. And we won't talk about what they did to my Auntie Nana. She was a disabled person who was in a wheelchair. They allowed Zurich's driver to break her neck and violate her. Kidnapped her. No means no, guys. And she ended up dead. And they want us to forget that? It's unbelievable. I'll never forget it. Never forget it. She died when she was, 60? Okay, number 22. We recognize, and everyone else must recognize, that while there are urgent needs to be addressed throughout the world, the necessary and lawful changes will not happen instantaneously or occur at the same pace in all places. A daunting process of evaluation and education lies ahead, not only for America and Americans, but for the rest of the world. Okay, I see what she means. Everybody's case is urgent, but there are people's that might have another priority. But Jimmy's life is in danger. He's a priority. At any rate, we embrace these challenges and opportunities in a spirit of brotherhood and with great determination to preserve all that is best in our communal past, while forging in the present time a firm and happy and simple basis to go forward into the future. 23. A part of our dedication to making government simple, sensible, and non-invasive. A great many of more than 80 million statutory laws, codes, and regulations which have resulted in such nullities as victimless crimes and thought crimes and unconscionable infractions will be set aside. Both the injustice promulgated by this proliferation of private statutory laws and the economic burdens of enforcing them is unsupportable and not in any sense necessary for nor conducive to the public good. 24. Legislation which has imposed upon the natural and unalienable rights of individuals and those rights and prerogative guaranteed by the Constitution will similarly be rooted out, set aside, and nullified, resulting in a release of many prisoners who have been victims of state, territory, and municipal prisons for-profit schemes. For-profit schemes. Yep. 25. Alongside with long, you know what, I'm going to go back with the for-profit scheme because I remember going to Georgia and hearing a judge say, do you want to take 10 years? Because if you go to jury, you might get 30. Who says that? Nobody. Number 25, along with the long overdue nullification of these burdensome and often oppressive and nonsensical statutory laws come the similar restructuring and removal of the administrative codes and administrative agencies. The gross duplication of the governmental service created in this country and the degree of public ignorance regarding the applicability of administrative codes which have no authority outside the corporate administration of our subcontractors will similarly be addressed. Thank goodness. 26. All of the reforms referenced above necessitate a similar reform of the court systems, which have been administering the enforcement of these statutes of the codes and expediting their improper imposition upon the general public. Our American justice will be returning to their proper places as administrators and comptrollers, and those lesser courts of strictly limited jurisdiction, including the courts of special admiralty, and their judges will be retired and circumscribed as the American courts revive, and the lawful duties and limited jurisdiction of the foreign courts are imposed. Most particularly hired jurists and territorial and municipal elected judges are advised to recognize the actual identity of Americans misaddressed by court summons and faulty case initiation processes so as to avoid further trespasses against their employers. Number 27. All public parties which have been endured and employed as a means of foment consent public policy debates related to our foreign subcontractors and their incorporated commercial corporations in the business of providing governmental services are merely lobbyists. Organizations similar to labor unions or professional associations like the Bar Association, and the bar is not good, guys, I'm telling you, and the American Medical Association, and all of which are foreign, with respect to our actual American government and devoid of any authority related to our states, our people, and our country. The election which have resulted from the activities of such organizations are self-evidently private corporations elections and do not, as they have misrepresented results in public elections, nor the lawful occupation of public offices. While we stop short at this time of outlawing such organization, generally we do insist that their activities be disclosed for what they are, and that all those elected and appointed to private corporation office as a result. Number 1, perform their constitutional duties. 2, observe the limitation of their offices. 3, fully disclose all impacts, obligations, effect, resulting legal presumptions, and applicability of registration processes, including voter registration. Number 4, fully disclose the limitation, applicability, and results of their foreign licensing agreement and foreign guild requirements in the event that any American thus fully informed should choose to participate or imagine that these foreign requirements and practices have anything whatsoever to do with them. Okay, I'm going to stop right here to explain it. Would you have voted for Biden if you knew that he threatened the Ukraine government to not give them $1 billion if they didn't fire the prosecutor that was going after his son? And I'm going to let you see the clip because most people seen it and some didn't. Why? Because the fake media.
Hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid at the time.
Well, it just so happens that the general prosecutor was investigating an energy firm in which Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, was heavily invested. Burisma Holdings is an energy corporation in Ukraine, and Hunter Biden, the son of the former vice president, has made a rather handsome profit from it, especially in the aftermath of the 2014 events in Ukraine in which pro-EU forces took power. That prosecutor was looking into 3 different instances of foul play from Hunter's cash cow. However, all it took was a phone call from Papa Joe, and that prosecutor was out.
We had plans that included interrogations and other crime investigation procedures into all members of the executive board, including Hunter Biden.
Members of the board obtained funds as well as another US-based legal entity, Rosemont Seneca Partners, LLC, for consulting services.
One might argue that perhaps Joe Biden had no idea about his son's financial interests. They say he's the vice president. Perhaps he was too busy running the country to pay attention to his son's finances. However, if he watched any American media, he couldn't have missed it. Back during the Ukraine events of 2014, the White House dismissed any notion that Hunter Biden's financial dealings had any impact on their decisions.
I'm wondering if the State Department has any concerns or any thoughts about the Vice President's son joining the board of directors of this Ukrainian gas company.
No, he's a private citizen.
So, as reels and reels of video show that Joe Biden has some pretty strange proclivities, and more women come forward saying they do not appreciate his affection, at this point it's pretty clear that Joe has some even stranger skeletons in his closet that he would like to keep buried.
All right, and then I'm going to shut it down. 28. Insurance is legalized gambling, and in our purported absence, a vast compendium of insurance services and insurance conglomerates with ties to international organized crime have sprung up on our shores and have been used for purposes of money laundering, unjust enrichment, and illegal investment pooling. While we realize the short-term benefits that can be gained by individuals' investment in various forms of insurance and the institutional profits that can be realized by allowing the insurance industry to exist, we also observe the social evil associated with insurance, bonding of assets, failure to pay, widespread, unilateral, and unconscionable contracting practices, misrepresentation of insured parties, and so on. The insurance company, like the even more corrupt and corruptible security industry, has been operating without competent third-party oversight in virtually all states of the Union. This situation requires the establishment of the state mandate, third-party oversight and enforcement, consumer protection, and ombudsman services specific to the insurance industry and insurance arbitration services available to the general public. 29. Securitization of living flesh is illegal. It has been illegal and unlawful since the days of slavery and was universally outlawed on a planetary basis as of 1926. Yet we observe the current situation promoted by the labor bonding practices of the municipal United States government and its co-conspirators at the Federal Reserve and DTCC, which have all promoted a ghastly trade in securitized labor and securitized living flesh, despite the clearly worded prohibition which stands as public law throughout the known world. The loophole used to promote this abhorrent situation is our guaranteed freedom to contract and the inability of the government to restrict our ability to contract. This freedom has been used as a means to enslave us via unconscionable contracts with babies and other minors, undisclosed third-party contracts entered into for us by people pretending to be our agents, trustees, executors, or others in power over our affairs and assets, and military press ganging, which has been outlawed for over 200 years. These claims ask us to entertain the ideal that we can choose to enter into contracts to perform illegal acts, subject ourselves and others to criminal practices, entered into unilateral contracts with ourselves and other personas representing ourselves, be subject to contracts we are totally unaware of, and via the exercise of our freedom to contract, justify any kind of criminal activity whatsoever, so long as there is a contractual obligation present. Okay, so I can give you an example of what she's talking about. Under the 3771, that's an emergency. When you are being threatened, you can call this number in Washington, D.C., and an agent comes on and says, oh, well, sorry, can't help, bye. And also, they have so many different agencies that are there to help you, but they don't enforce their policy, especially when you are telling on their brethren. So, I mean, I can go all day, but they hire third parties and they do absolutely nothing against those that work in DC. Another example is when you write the president, we wrote President Donald Trump, and they gave us a return letter, and they told us to call this number. And we had an emergency. We called twice, and the emergency third party told us that they couldn't help, and they hung up on us twice. So that's a waste of money for emergencies. Also, although I have or don't want anything to do with Biden, I told him, if you save Jimmy's life, I'll vote for you. And I told this to Harris too. And guess what? They just said send more money. So everybody knows about Jimmy's situation, but nobody's doing anything. Except the military, because I know they're working behind the scenes. Alright? That's all I got to say. Okay, back to Justice Anna's 9-page letter. It's almost over, guys. Requirements, and most of all, by the illegal, unconstitutional, and unlawful results of these foreign legal practices and presumptions being misapplied to Americans, all of which serves to make the municipal United States government sponsored by the Holy Sees and those corporations conspiring with it to engage in these contracting practices recognizable as an international crime, syndicate engaged in crimes against humanity. Hence, stomp stomp, and that is why this executive order that I'm telling you about, when they violate your human rights, something has to be done. I'm telling you. I can go on, and I will. We've got 2 more pages. Our municipal subcontractors are responsible for the misdirection and misadministration of their hirelings and franchises. They have cause to know the limitation of their services, contracts, and the public law of the country, and their own obligation to anyone born on our soil. They have deliberately and with apparent malevolent and self-interest intent built a foreign evil, invasive, and unauthorized criminal empire on our shores in contravention of the public law and in violation of the international and global law. They have employed falsified record impersonations, constructive fraud, and barratry to do it. As a result of these crimes and the usurpation against our lawful government, evidenced by the spread of the municipal government enclave and activities far beyond the limitations set by our constitutional agreement already noted, corrective measures have been taken and will continue until the entire criminal edifice is extracted together with the corporations and interlocking trusts, directorates, and individuals connected to these activities and practices. Number 30. In 1865, the territorial United States government felt its duty to fully inform and support the Federation of States. The same territorial United States government claimed emergency power that were never granted to it, and used this claim as an attempt to justify its continued abrogation of its own constitutional limitation and obligation owned to the American state and people. In 1868, this same territorial United States government created a Scottish commercial corporation merely calling itself the United States of America Incorporated, and in an act of undisclosed constructive fraud and attempted legal enclosure, published the Articles of Incorporation as the Constitution of the United States of America. In 1870, the same territorial United States government, acting as the United States Congress, claimed that it had the right to issue corporate charters in our names, something never authorized or granted to the territorial United States government, and naturally residing by operation of law and jurisdiction with our unincorporated Federation of States. In 1871, these same jackals exercised this false claim of power and authorized to create multiple municipal commercial corporations in our names and use these as instrumentalities of the District of Columbia. They also claim to own all United States corporations and the assets thereof as personal property. Every iota of this was accomplished under conditions of fraud, non-disclosure, and treasonous usurpation against our actual American government, and all of it was done by self-seeking foreign employees on our payroll, being either A, misdirected by the foreign principals responsible for their activities, or B, being allowed to run wild, building 810, and do all these things by other principal parties to the federal Constitution without oversight. In all cases, the British monarchs, the Lord Mayors of London, and the Pope, who owned us, yes, owned us. That's why that whistleblower told on them yesterday. Okay, I'm going to stop right here because it's important. Remember the whistleblower from the World Bank? I did a video on there yesterday. And she said the Pope owns us and the IRS, our IRS, goes to the Vatican. Now look at this. Do your own research. This is the IRS and this is the IRS DUNS number. So what does that tell you? It should tell you she's telling the truth. We've been tricked for all these years. And everybody knows about it. Well, majority of the people know about it. And so I'll share this with you again. The IRS contacted me because I'm a whistleblower. And they said, oh, you owe $10,000 here, $6,000 here, $100,000. I'm like, you know what? I know your little secret. I know your game. And I know because I'm a whistleblower, your brethren told you to contact me. I will take leave of the court and add you onto my quote warrant tow and as a defendant. And guess what? This is what they said. You're right. Psych. Please don't add us on. It's a trick, guys. The IRS is a trick. Okay, so back to Justice Anna's message back to us when I reached out for help. And justice means she sat on the higher Supreme Court in Alaska, right? Good faith and service in these matters were derelict and criminally negligent in the performance of their duties, including the duties to protect and inform their employers. A similar situation occurred to this misadministration of our patent, trademark, and copyright offices. As a result, corrective measures have been taken and will continue to be taken. The ownership's interests in the United States Corporation belong to our unincorporated Federation of States, the United States of America, and to the states of this country, the people. In those names, these entities were created under conditions that are otherwise constructive fraud and without any vestige of authority to exercise any such sovereign power. All corporations formed since 1860 in the name of either United States or the United States of America are subject to the ownership and authority of the unincorporated American government and our public law, including the federal constitution. All such corporations have been given one year to correct and amend their articles of incorporation accordingly or choose voluntary liquidation. And that's why whenever we go into court, that's why they're, instead of doing the right thing, they get their little pawns like we showed you to sign off, and they hide behind the American flag. When I say they, I'm talking about DOJ. I'm talking about VA headquarters. I'm talking about Building 810. I'm talking about these judges and attorneys that we busted. They're busted. They committed treason. We need justice. And I'm telling you, my brothers and sisters that have gone through the justice system right now, that these psychopaths don't care about you, don't care about me. They care about business. This is business. That's all they think about. Money, right? Money is good, but you can't take it to the grave with you. They think about how they're going to screw you over. If you don't know your rights, they think in their twisted mind you don't have rights. So they will take your rights away. It's a game. It's a business. Wake up, guys. If they could throw me out, they would, but they can't. And Judge Anna, in her 9-page report, is saying, Sue, do not consent to the devil. They are the devilish. They are devil. They sold their souls. What you need to do is you need to find another way, because they already got their pink slip. Their tokens have run all out. They know they either have to abide by the Constitution or liquidate everything. They're playing you. Girl, they're playing you. She's saying the only way you, Jimmy, your Auntie Nana, are going to get justice is follow my lead. Follow my lead. So back to Justice Anna's report that we busted. They're busted. They committed treason. We need justice. And they're playing us. And she's telling on them. Number 31. Our relations with the Pope, the Queen, and the Lord Mayor of London are understandably quite strained as a result of these criminal activities and various forms of usurpation, which have been employed and allowed to prosper against our lawful government. Various other bad faith abuses of actual delegate powers by the same parties, such as the giveaway, trade agreement, federal block grant, kickback programs used as inducements to evade constitutional obligations and unlawful convert local government, especially city governments, and widespread improper enforcement of the foreign contracting processes and forms of law, including the Spanish law of the Inquisition, and participation in the foreign tax schemes such as the New Green Deal and American wealth redistribution schemes predicated on the idea that our entire country was abandoned and without a government, and claims by the self-interest creditors of our foreign subcontractors that are our asset distributed worldwide where were unclaimed and abandoned. All of this and more serves for prickly foreign relations going forward, as it is abundantly apparent to all parties that we have been horrendously deserved by our employees and the principals responsible for their employment at our expense for the past 158 years. So when you go into court and you complain why you're not getting justice, it's because of what she's saying, guys. 32. As disturbing as all this is, together with the fact that our supposed friend and allies have in fact proven to be our most intractable and unkind and dishonest detractors, it is nonetheless the truth. and we use our case as an example. They have done everything to include set us up and turn our friends, who we thought were friends, against us. Our affidavit of probable cause has been published worldwide and distributed worldwide since 2015. 2015 as part of our book, You Know Something is Wrong When an American affidavit of probable cause and wet ink signed and witnessed copies have been provided to the principals and other responsible officials. Courts serving in the international and global jurisdiction have been given proper notice and invocation of the law, including the International Courts of Justice, the Court of the Lord High Steward, and the Vatican Court, and all have been moved to action upon the maxim of law pertaining to the forms of law they each employ. The fundamental crimes of fraud, breach of trust, and piracy, both on the high seas and inland piracy, form a common thread impacting all jurisdiction of the actual public law of this planet. Those who have been compartmentalized and left unaware of these circumstances must now awaken and undertake correction together with those of us who have already labored long and faithfully in the cause of decency and freedom for mankind. Signed by Anna Marie, Fiduciary, the United States America, with her stamp. Okay, sorry it took so long, but I am a slow reader, and I read it because some people can't see. I know a good friend who just had surgery, eye surgery, and at any rate, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to post everything that I sent forward today, and feel free to read it, share it, and do what you can. The bottom line up front is we have been played with financially, emotionally, and they're just causing a preventable health issue, legal abuse syndrome, which is criminal. It always has been. So, enjoy and have a great weekend. Here are the slides.